The Islamic Center at New York University is pleased to present the following program. For more of our lectures, please visit us online at ICNYU.org.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا مولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله. In the name of Allah, the Gracious, the Merciful, all praise is due to Allah, the Lord of the universe, the Master of the Day of Judgment. I bear witness and testimony to the oneness of Allah, to His magnificence, His omnipotence, His might, His glory, to His being the creator and sustainer of all things, the giver of life, the guider of hearts, the Master of the Day of Judgment. I bear witness to the fact that Muhammad ibn Abdullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam is His servant and final messenger. May the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him and upon all those who choose to tread in His path until the last day. It is said that in the first generation of Islam, the Sahabis of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they used to love to pray. That at any given point in time, at any given occasion, that at every hour of the night, these men and women, whenever they had the opportunity to lay their heads prostrate to Allah Azza wa Jal, they would seize the opportunity and do whatever they could, knowing that that sajda was the closest opportunity for them to get closer to Allah. That forgetting their 5 daily prayers and the steadfastness to which they held them, going to pray them in the masajid, going to pray them in congregation, going to pray them hour upon hour, going to pray them with the greatest of khushu. These men and women, they went even beyond that to pray their supererogatory prayers, standing in the late hours of the night for salatul tahajjud, doing everything that they could do, knowing it inwardly, outwardly, every single aspect of it. And so it is said on one occasion, Abu Hurairah radiallahu anh, he is in the masjid with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And it is said that a man comes into the masjid and he begins to pray the Tayyatul Masjid. He prays 2 rak'ah upon entering the masjid, and upon completion of these 2 rak'ah, he comes past the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the Nabi of Allah alayhi salam tells him that go back and pray, you have not prayed. And he comes now again, he goes and again prays these 2 rak'ah, and again he comes back to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and again the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam tells the man that go back and pray, for you have not prayed. And it is said that this happens 3 times, and after the 3rd time the man says to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that, Ya Rasulullah, I don't know any better than this, teach me about it, teach me about my prayer. And the Prophet ﷺ says that when you rise to make your salah, when you rise to make your prayer, begin with Allahu Akbar and then recite a portion of the Quran that is known to you. And then when you go into your ruku', when you go into your bowing, stay in your bowing until you are comfortable in your ruku'. And then from your ruku', go into your standing as such that when you are standing up straight. And then after you're standing, go into your prostration until you are comfortable in your sujood. Then from there, go into your kneeling until you are comfortable in your julus. And then from there, go into your prostration until you are comfortable in your sujood. And make your entire prayer just like this. This is how the Prophet ﷺ responds to the individual when he is telling him that there is something deficient in my prayer. I don't know what it is. Ya Rasulullah, teach me about it. Tell me what is there that I am lacking. And the Prophet ﷺ does not speak to him in terms of anything that goes from an inward aspect, but he is telling him from a purely outward, from a purely external manifestation, to work properly on the mechanics of this ritualistic practice that is said to be the thing that you will be taken into account for, firstly when you stand in front of Allah Azza wa Jal. And so for us today, we have to ask ourselves that what is the state of our ritualistic practice? What is the state of our prayer? What is the state of our ibadah, our worship that we are presenting to Allah Azza wa Jal? That when we stand to pray in front of Him, do we know the mere mechanics of it? That when we place our hands in a certain position, when we leave something and forget it, do we understand the prostration of forgetfulness? When we are praying in congregation, or perhaps even if we are fortunate enough to be the one that is deemed to be the leader of the entire Jama'ah and responsible for everything that happens behind him, do we really know what is taking place? Do we understand these mere mechanics of it? What is the state of our worship? How often do we ponder upon what we are doing? How often do we analyze and seek to understand that this is the means by which we will get closer to our Rabb, the uttermost intricacies of it, the uttermost details of it. If we perform it to perfection, all it is going to do is benefit us on an individual basis and no one else. But we seek to rush through our salah, we seek to rush through our worship, that when we fast in the days of Ramadan, we sleep until after the Dhuhr prayer and spend mere hours awake until the Maghrib time comes when we can eat again. That when we would go for our Hajj, it is only after we have spent decades upon decades traveling the rest of the world, and then in our old age we would say that now when we don't even have the strength and the energy to walk through the blessed streets of Mecca, we need to sit in a wheelchair to do it. Now I'm going to go and make my pilgrimage to Mecca. What is the state of our worship? What is the state of our ibadah? How is it qualified when we stand in front of Allah Azza wa Jal, when we present it to Him and say that, Ya Rabbi, judge me upon these actions, judge me upon this worship? How will we rank amongst those who actually sought to beautify their worship? It is said that during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, the Muslimin found themselves in an instance where they were in a battle. That people were coming into Medina, and so they had to dig a ditch around the place of Medina, and when they were digging this ditch, they come upon a rock, they come upon a great boulder that they are not able to move, and so they asked the Prophet ﷺ that, Ya Rasulullah, what will we do about this? And so the Prophet ﷺ, it is said that he takes the tools that they were using to break apart these boulders, and he strikes against the boulder himself. And while he is striking against the boulder, it is said that sparks come out of it, and he looks into the sparks and he tells the people who are around him that I see within these sparks the kingdoms, the castles of Kisra and Kaysara, of those of the Romans and those of the Persians. And he says that this means that Allah Azza wa Jal is telling me that my ummah, my community will eventually expand into these lands. And the people of that time, they are stricken with war, they are stricken with poverty, they are hungry, they don't know what is going on, they are trying to establish the Islamic State, and they can't understand how the Prophet ﷺ is saying that they as a people are going to eventually be taking on the superpowers of the world. And so the munafiqeen, they use this as a means by which they can begin to ridicule the Prophet ﷺ. But years later, it said that during the time of the caliphate of Umar radiallahu anh, these same people, these same sahabis who were standing there digging the ditch with the Prophet ﷺ, they are now amongst those who are sitting in those castles after the Muslim empire has expanded into those lands. And so Umar radiallahu anh, that when he is there as the caliph of the Muslim empire, he takes the Muslimin into the area in the land that is the Persian Empire, what we know as Iran today, and the king of that empire, it is said that he runs away from the place. He runs away, taking everything that he has in terms of his worldly possessions, taking everything he has in his belongings, taking everything that is on his mind. He takes his servants, he takes his wealth, he takes whatever he can, but he leaves behind his 3 daughters, he leaves behind his children, because they are not on his mind. And so when the Muslimin come into the place, when they come into this place and they take control of the land, they take custody, they take care of these 3 women that king of Persia, Yastaghir, was unfortunate enough to leave behind, because they were not on his mind in comparison to his wealth and possessions. And now it is said that these 3 women, they come into the Muslim empire, and so too they have the opportunity to be taken in full force. And it is said that one of the women is there and she is paired with Muhammad ibn Abu Bakr, or the second one is paired with Abdullah ibn Umar, and the third one is paired with Hassan ibn Ali. And Hassan ibn